A lot of new names.
Awesome. We're going to get started in just a minute here, folks. We're giving everyone a chance to trickle in, get settled. Awesome. Quick shout out if you're joining us over on the YouTube simulcast. Welcome. And to all of our good friends here with us directly in the Zoom, we are so happy to have you. Hal, the man, the myth, the legend, welcome back, sir. It's always great to see you. I hope you're having a great week. Awesome. We're going to fire this thing up just a sec here. For those of you that are new to these sessions, my name is Nate, co-hosting these with our very own Richard Krugel, whom you can see is waiting in the wings. Awesome. Well, it looks like we have a nice crew coming together. So let's go ahead and fire up today's Profits at Noon session. So welcome one, welcome all to Ninjacators' new weekly live event. We are live 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all at noon Eastern time. The goal for these sessions is for us to show you the levels that we are stalking for entry and to steer you clear of any market traps or news bombs that could be waiting around the corner. So in addition to all this great live analysis Richard is about to show you, in addition to that, we're also going to give you what we call our levels to lock. These are actionable levels that you can copy and stalk along with us. And we do, of course, encourage you to join us in the follow-up sessions so you can stay with us and see all of this analysis in action. As mentioned, we're live 3 days a week, so we will be back tomorrow for the last updates of the week, Thursday at noon Eastern time. Of course, I will make sure to clear some room for any Q&A. So this goes to whether you're in Zoom or you're over on the YouTube simulcast. Please feel free to fire away in the chat at any point throughout today's session, and we will make sure that you are taken care of. We will always make sure that we've got room for Q&A here. And then, of course, we'll put a few things on your radar before we wrap today's session, including any live events that may be coming up, as well as some highly requested tool spotlights. So if you're new to these sessions, we also, once per week, do a little tool spotlight where we break out some of the Ninjacators tool suites, roll up our sleeves, and show you what they're capable of. So if you have any requests for a future tool spotlight, also feel free to fire away there in the chat. Now, I think I've rambled on long enough, so let's go ahead and bring in the man, the myth, the legend, one Richard Krugel to come in, lead us for today's analysis, and dish out those levels to lock. Sir, would you take the reins, please?
Thanks very much, Nathan, as always, and to everyone joining here today. Great seeing a lot of new names here. That's pretty awesome. Always like some interactive sessions. So what I normally do is go through the markets. Obviously, as Nathan mentioned, we go through the ES, the NASDAQ, the Russell, Dow, crude oil, and gold, using my specific analysis techniques, as well as where price is trading in relation to our levels to lock. And then, yeah, if you've got any questions about the analysis side of things, people, please let me know there in the chat. I'll be more than welcome to, or happy to answer those for you. So yeah, let's just dive right into things here. I'm going to quickly disappear off screen, switch my camera off. I'll be back when the analysis part is done. All right, so before we do get started, just a quick reminder, everyone, that all information in today's session is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not an offer or recommendation to trade futures, stocks, options, or Forex. Right, let me just get rid of those slides. And first off, want to look at what happened today on the economic calendar side of things and what's scheduled for tomorrow and Friday. So we had core PPI numbers come out. Crude oil inventories actually shown a pretty big increase in storage. That might be a bit bearish for crude oil. We do follow crude oil in profit at noon sessions. And then obviously, just short of 2 hours from now, we have the FOMC statement, the federal funds rate, the big one, and followed by the FOMC press conference at 2:30 p.m. So, as you probably all know, those that do follow the what the Fed says and how it relates to and affects the futures markets, especially the indices, gold, even dollar index, markets that are affected by these decisions, especially interest rates, which has always been a huge topic last year and also spilled into this year. It does look like inflation's sort of been tamed a little bit, and it did mention that they might keep the rate stable at 5.25, which is the forecast. So we'll see what happens, if they're going to not raise or they're going to. I think it might be a bit of a volatile sort of few minutes leading up to that, as well as afterwards, or potentially a non-event at all. Everyone's expecting for them not to raise interest rates. So, maybe if they do something no one was expecting, we could see quite adverse market movements, especially in the indices and in gold. All right, there are a lot of new names in here, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of what I do with my analysis. Well, I use a blend of price structure. I'm looking at a 4-hour chart here. I'll go through what all of these colors mean in just a sec. Look at price structure, and I love using market geometry techniques to sort of give me a bit of I won't say a forecast, but sort of a projection as to where prices might move, as well as where they might find resistance and support along the way. All right, also use a bit of pattern analysis, and you'll see these blue lines here were historical projected ranges, which is one of our proprietary indicators we have here at Ninjacators. Are these dashed ones? I think this is called firebrick color, and we have these blue ones down here. Based on previous days' volatility, very often price reaches them, or they get drawn towards them. They also act as support and resistance. So we then also have these red lines here. We've got this orange line here. They're your normal standard pivot points. All right, pivot point, resistance 1, resistance 2, and the same to downside, S1, S2, S3. So quite often I like to also look at how where price is trading in relation to the day's projected ranges, as well as these pivot points, and how price closes on a 4-hour candle above or below them, which direction we might see movements, occur. Now, quite often I'm very interested in, let's say, for example, these lows here. Let's say we would get a decline from here. Let's say we get some sort of a decline. Now, you'll see this line running to the upside here is one of my pitchfork's median lines, and there's a bit of a confluence between today's projected low deviation as well as S2. I'm not saying price is going to, I'm just saying this quite often is areas, because we've got confluence between an angle market geometry line as well as these horizontal lines from our levels to lock. They quite often act as strong in this case if price were to move towards it as support. All right, so that's just a quick rundown of what all these lines are. And I think if you do attend again in the future sessions, if you're unfamiliar with my analysis, you'll start getting the hang of what I'm trying to do here. So since around mid-March, I've labeled this move to the upside as a 1. And I've basically identified the zigzagging upward sort of trajectory that appeared there as a leading diagonal, a zigzag for a 2, and then I labeled this as a third wave. And then also during one of these sessions, I start calling this an expanding triangle. It was almost as just before price reaches low, we had a session. I was saying that price, if it does find support very soon and move to the upside, and it does so aggressively, there will potentially be a high probability end of a fourth wave of a triangle, expanding triangle. And then I was saying we potentially have a fifth wave sequence to the upside. All right. Now, this has all worked out pretty decently. The only thing is that this strong move to the upside here now is getting very extended for me to sort of count this as a fifth wave. So I might have to start reconsidering what is happening here from a sequence perspective. All right. You can't always get this right. There's a lot of subjectivity that can be involved with, as you call, Elliott wave analysis. They always make jokes if you put 2 in a room, or 2 different analysts in a room, that they will all come to different conclusions. I kind of do agree with that, but I do sort of apply them loosely. I like to know where price is in relation to my market geometry lines, which phases I think price might be moving in. And that quite often gives you a good indication of where price might move next. So as we did here when this expanding triangle ended. But the resulting move to the upside here has been very strong. So I'm pretty much super bullish here on the years, to be dead honest, on the NQ. Because if this was a fifth wave, and that's just this sequence here, guys. I'm not talking about the bigger picture. Let's quickly have a look at the bigger picture. I don't have that chart open. I'll show you guys later. But just from this low, All right, let's move to the upside. Fifth wave, one would expect would be pretty much as long as your first wave, or a little bit longer. Now that didn't happen, and prices since blasted off back to the upside. So I'm potentially seeing this as just a very strong bullish move. 1, 2, and making the sequences of 1, 2s to the upside, building its way up in a very, very strong, impulsive upwards move. So that being said, probably have to throw these labelings out of the window. But what I do have on my charts, as always, are my market geometry lines. And what I've done here now is also adjust my pitchfork from the previous one I've had sloping to the upside here. And what I did was basically slope a standard pitchfork from this low in October last year to this high around what's the end of Jan, almost begin Feb here of this year, to this low here, what was this, on 12th or 13th of March. And you can see that price basically been fluctuating up and down between the confines of this center channel line and this lower median line. So it's acted as support on previous occasions over here, a retest of that lower median line. You can also see here that these angles of support and resistance working really well as well. Had issues breaking through it and finally breaks through it, pulls back, acts as support, and now moving back to the upside. All right, so long story short, I'm not going to do this for every single market, but I think for those that are new to these sessions, they should give you a decent idea of, what I'm trying to achieve here. So my trajectory still to the upside. Any sort of pullbacks to the downside, however, I'll treat as corrective in nature. Let's say we get a pullback like this. Then again, we'll look at one of our previous sessions. We'll look at where we can find, potential areas of support. There's been quite a few instances where I identified areas previously using market geometry as well to try to figure out where corrections might end before the next leg move higher follows. So bullish on the ES, whether we're going to get a correction sooner rather than later, or whatever, towards this upper median line here. Prices opened above today's pivot point at 4,407. It's sort of been hovering sideways, pretty normal for a FOMC day. Federal funds rate decision coming out, very slow grind to the upside, while market participants waiting to see what the Fed will get up to with the interest rate decision. So price just broke above today's R1 at 4,433. If the markets like what they're saying today and do not raise interest rates, I don't know. We can never say how the market's going to react, but I think another move higher and let's say a retest during or after the FOMC statement of today's range high, which is currently at 4,439.5. We could potentially see another strong move to R2, which is currently at 4,449. And we also have that projected range high today at 4,454, making those potential targets price could move towards. Alternatively, should the markets react negatively, I would like to see a close on a 4-hour candle below today's pivot point, again, which is at 4,407. If that does happen, then we could see a flush down to S1 at about 4,392. I don't know if it gets really bearish, potentially back to this median line where we have today's projected low deviation 2 and also today's S2. But I think that's would be one hell of a decline. Can happen, but I don't think the chances are that high for doing that. So bullish on the ES overall over the long term, but also obviously we could get any correction, which would be pretty normal at any time. So that's why we are also here, trying to guide you guys what I'm seeing in the markets when I think a correction is underway. This far, using this pitchfork slope that I've changed from the previous one, quite a lot of space back to the upside, but not ruling out that we could potentially see a retest of this area at some stage and then a move to the upside, potentially before price reaches that area. But let's see how things react, or the markets react today to that news, and also the statement afterwards, or press conference, and we'll recap things again, obviously, tomorrow. All right, it brings me to the NASDAQ. Similar thing I've done here, changed my pitchfork settings. I have my first anchor point, and this is a shift pitch, a modified pitchfork setting, which is the same as a channel, especially if you use the same anchor points, just to demonstrate that for you. going from this low almost by mid-March. Sorry, I just want to get rid of that snap mode. To this low, close to the end of April. To that high over here, which was about the end of March. You see, it gives you the same angles as a channel, right? So if you use the same angles as a channel and you select the modified pitchfork, it's pretty much the same thing, all right? So that's my operating angle of a cent at the moment, meaning that I would expect prices to move or gravitate towards these lines. And also when you get corrections like we did previously here, one could potentially expect support to step in, which is a perfect example that we've had here previously. A move above a centimeter line, price did not make it to this upper median line, pulls back to centimeter line, finds support, and has now sort of been riding or grinding, should we say, its way upwards against this upper median line here. Price been above today's pivot point most of the day at 15,073, just reached R1, which is around about where price currently is at. It's just behind that price label at the moment, 15,186. Nearly made it to R2, actually halfway between R1 R2. Again, if we get a nice strong move up here during today's FMC, we could potentially see price reach R2 at 15,262, maybe even make it as high as today's projected range high at 15,284 3/4. Alternatively, we see a decline below today's range, which is at 15,052.5, and we get a close below there on the 4-hour. I think S1 is achievable at 14,996, and potentially a move towards today's projected range low, and S2 that lies between 14,885, 14,919, sort of around this area over here, which will also fall in line, not in line, but very close to this upward sloping median line here. That being said, again, still super bullish on the NQ as well, on most of the indices. The real question is, are we going to get a pullback sooner rather than later? I think NQ could potentially reach this upper red warning line, yeah, at some stage. Don't think that will happen today. Could do. All fireworks, if things go really well and people really like what's coming out, then we might get a strong move, but I don't think it's got the legs to do that just yet. Right, so also bullish on the NQ, but not ruling out we could get a correction at any time. All right, that brings me to the YM. See, here is a good example of what I did with a corrective move on the YM, which for the longest time has been way weaker than the ES and the Nasdaq. Obviously a different market comprised of different stocks, but we were treating this decline as a double zigzag, basically a single zigzag or just a zigzag, or what people call an ABC, is probably one of your most common corrections before you get a trend continuation. So prior to this move to the upside, price been moving higher, and then it made what I call a double zigzag. What I call is actually one of Elliott Wave's corrective patterns. There's basically two zigzags after each other. The first one being pretty short-lived, and the second one took a little bit longer to materialize, which is also pretty normal for these double zigzags. And where did it end? Right at a 61.8 Fib retracement from this low around mid-March, measured from this low from mid-March, to that high around the end of April. Pulled right into that 61.8, completing what I still think is a double zigzag. We had a very strong move back to the upside, which was kind of expected. And I'm also here using, in this case, a shift pitchfork. I'm just using that one because I think the angle of ascent fits this setting of this pitchfork way better. All right, so price came very, very, very close to breaking these highs, which still for me confirms this was a double zigzag WXY pattern, as I call them. And I'm still bullish towards this upper median line here. That upper median line, whether it'll be reached today, next week, tomorrow, who knows? I can't tell you that, but I'm bullish towards that level. that makes sense. Also not ruling out that we could see a decline towards a center median line at some stage, potentially. Doesn't have to happen. But if we do get that, I quite often get excited because those are the areas I want to trade from, where I believe support can step in. So this is what I do with price structure, bit of wave analysis, or what I call sequences of, whatever you want to call it. So bullish overall, but if we do get like say a pullback, I'll treat it as corrective, like I'm going to do on the ES and the NASDAQ, and look at where these lines are. Are there any sort of confluence between our median lines as well as our levels to lock? On the YM though, today price has been below today's pivot point at 34,498. It's sort of been bouncing between today's pivot point and S1. On the previous candle, actually just dipped slightly below today's S1 at 43,362. And again, just sort of moving sideways, typically what these indices do as they wait for important Fed announcements. So I think if we get another move higher and a break above today's range at 34,518, we just got to be careful. We got this median line, which previously acted as resistance. You can see price reached it, tried to stay above it and moved lower. That is above today's candle, around 34,562. If we break above that, I think we'll take out, YM should take out these highs. We potentially breaking through today's projected range high at 34,617. Maybe even making it to R1 at 34,670. So that is the bullish case. However, if we see a decline and a close below today's range low, which is at 34,330, we might see that decline that could, I've been talking about here now, that I'll treat as corrective. Happen sooner rather than later. Towards today's projected range low at 34,233. And potentially to S2, 34,190. Right, that concludes the YM. And next up, we have the Russell. I see Six as raising his hand there, Nathan.
I actually just shot him a note in the chat. Feel free, Sec, by the way, if you want to shoot that over to me. It looks like he is coming through now. So perfect. So we'll take a quick break for this question. And by the way, if anyone else has any questions along the way, please feel free to fire away in the chat. We'll make sure everybody's taken care of. But Sec says, how do you decide to enter long or short?
I trade from those median lines. So let's give you a quick example of, let's say on the ES here, or let's make it the NASDAQ. No, it's not a great example. Let's say, for example, I wanted to fade YM, trade to the downside. I'll do that at one of these areas. So these are my locations I want to trade from. Obviously, in this case, I'm bullish, so I don't really want to go short because I'll be going against the trend. But what I love doing is waiting for corrections, what I believe is a correction, should I say, towards one of these median lines, and then trade from it. Now, you see I'm doing all this analysis on a 4-hour time frame. So the idea here is to sort of give you a bit of a forecast of what I think price is going to be doing. But me personally, when I do trade, I always want to know what's happening on the larger, bigger time frame. And I sometimes even can go down all the way to 5 minutes, sometimes even a 1-minute time frame, and wait for prices to, let's say, reach those areas of market geometry. And sometimes these projected range lows or these pivot points, if they line up with one of my market geometry areas, and wait for some sort of reaction on a smaller time frame and then trade from there, if that makes sense. All right, so knowing whether I want to be going long or short, I get that idea exactly from the analysis I'm doing here right now. Price structure, patterns, market geometry, and etc. So I do trade from smaller time frames, but I do my homework on higher time frames and quite often want to see prices reach these higher time frames, areas of market geometry, and then I can switch to a smaller time frame and decide which direction I want to trade towards. All right, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answered your question, Sec. Right, next up, Russell. Craig's asking, can you quickly go over how you add the pitchfork to your charts? I will definitely do that for you. I can do it on here quickly. So you probably got your pitchfork either on the side bar here, or you could go here to your tools and scroll down and go ahead and click on Andrew's pitchfork, right? Or you can get this drawing tool tile that I have here. That's quite nifty. I like pulling it around when I do market geometry. That's actually added as an indicator and built into NinjaTrader 8. So you can go and, sorry, I'm just trying to show you quickly. It actually loads as an indicator. Why is that screen taking so long? There we go. See, here it is, that drawing tool tile. And you can set the amount of rows that you want. That affects the width of this. I like to have it quite narrow. And then you can go choose whichever one of these inbuilt tools in NinjaTrader 8 you want to activate, and that will then appear on your drawing tool tile. All right, but anyway, I'm diversing what I'm trying to say here. Now, let's say you want to figure out where support or resistance might step in during this move to the upside here. Well, a rule of thumb is that you want to draw a pitchfork. If you want to draw a pitchfork, right? That you use the three most prominent anchor points, in this case would be swings, prior to this move that's going in your direction. So we got this strong move up here, right? Now, where are the three most prominent anchor points that you can use, the ones that really stand out prior to this move to the upside? And that would be this one down here, this one up there, and this one down here right before the strong move to the upside, right? Now, I like putting my snap mode on. You can go and select your Andrew's pitchfork, whether it's from this tile, maybe you have it on the side here, or from your tool over there. And you have to select 3 points on your chart. You see, we got that pen drawing at the moment. So that tells me I'm going to draw it. You want to go to your starting point, to your second anchor point, and to your third anchor point, and it would draw that automatically for you. All right. Now, quite often you want to slope a pitchfork, decide on the setting of pitchfork you want to use by closely looking at what price action is doing while it's in the confines of your median lines. Now, is it really respecting these angles really well? If it's not, or let's say you have a breakout to the upside like we've had here, you can quite often copy and paste that and do this, for example, and see that this angle of the shift pitchfork it's set to is also still working really, really well. You see how price found resistance once, twice, 3 times with a bit of rejection right at that median line. Or if you want to go change the setting, left click, right click, properties, and this is where you can select between your shift. Standard is your Dr. Alan Andrews standard pitchfork, and you also have the modified pitchfork. Modified, like I mentioned, is the same as a channel if you use the same anchor points to draw your channel. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. What did I have? I think I had a standard on here because we have a pretty strong move up to the upside here. So quickly back to the analysis. Russell's been in a pretty hectic sideways moving with pretty large range. Volatile trading range is what I want to say, that we've been following for quite some time. And then price broke out of it finally. And at that stage was saying bullish on Russell finally. And we've seen also a very strong incline to the upside here. Not knowing, I don't really know if I'm too set on this pitchfork setting just yet, but I did delete the previous one I've had on there, and probably have to start thinking about, giving some more attention to Russell, which is not really one of my favorite markets. If we switch this to, let's quickly go to a modified. Yeah, and you can see price is not really, this is actually working really nicely. See how price found resistance at that upper median line. Once you see things like this, you can quite often expect that the angle or the slope of this modified pitchfork to work into the future. You see how price broke above that area what I quite often do is don't let that throw you off and think you're on the wrong setting. Draw a ray. You're going to see this in the other markets I'm going to show you next. Oh, sorry, just get rid of that snap mode. Draw a ray at the same angle, parallel to one of your median lines. That area where price overshot that median lines, quite often where price pulls back into it again, it could act as resistance, which is what's happening here at the moment. So also bullish on Russell, just can't obviously write off that we can see a deep decline at any stage. Again, here also price has been above today's pivot point at, what's it, 1910, 1913, between the pivot point and today's R1, 1932. Maybe we get a break and a close on a 4-hour below today's pivot point. We could see a move back to S1, which is at 1899, maybe even towards today's projected range low, which will also fall in line with this angular upward sloping median line, which has also previously acted as support. That could potentially be a target area if price continues lower. All right, so that brings me to gold. Yeah, I also think big movements on Russell on the 23rd, you say, Harold? Right, here's gold, a beautiful example of why I like to follow what the sequences are telling me. During these sessions, I was calling this as potential fifth wave, and we should be careful that a deeper decline is going to follow, simply because we had a 5-wave sequence. Now, we had a very strong decline here. We had an upward sloping channel that contained price. We even called this triangle here pretty well. And you can see also really, really nicely how this channel, or should I just call it market geometry, has contained price action. You know, it went from down to up to down to up, broke below it, retested it, and we had rejection. And it was at that stage that it confirmed that potentially had that fifth wave sequence completed. Now I'm thinking, and I'm still thinking, that gold is potentially in the first wave lower of a much deeper correction, something potentially like this. All right, if we're just going to get one hell of a large zigzag. I've sloped a pitchfork, and this is a shift pitchfork again from that high, which I label as 5, to the first decline, or the first, well, notable anchor point to the downside, first notable pullback. And you can see here how beautifully price has also been respecting these median lines, support, resistance, support, resistance. Now, if we're going to see, let's say, an ABC, in this case, is a much bigger ABC, the question still is, did we see a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5? And now we're doing this, and then we're going to get another 5-wave sequence to the downside, giving us an A, giving us a B, and then a C downwards. That I'm not sure about this 5-wave sequence. What I am starting to see here is this familiar, I won't say definite, but does look like a familiar triangle. Potentially even a descending triangle. We have a flat bottom. Could potentially be a bearish indication of what could follow. Might be completely wrong. Sometimes if this correction, if we get a high move upwards here instead and not downwards, then this might actually be a triangle B wave, where this is potentially an A, you have a triangle as a B, and then another move back up, and then a decline. Just to make things a little bit more complicated, right? Just give you a quick example of a triangle that actually is part of an ABC. Was this move that we've seen here in that ended sort of about, when was this? The first quarter of 2022. We had this extremely long triangle here. I measured this as a double zigzag for an A strong move up for an A triangle for a B, and a C, giving us an A, B, and a very strong decline. We've also tracked this during those prior sessions I ran, which was called the morning bell, and sort of caught that really nicely as well, thinking that a potential C wave of very large expanded flat ended. All right, so just giving you a quick example of how combinations of patterns or corrections could really make life interesting. So you have to really try to, think out of the box sometimes, is what I'm trying to say. But this could potentially be a triangle. Again, I'm like losing my chain of thought here, but I quite often like rambling about these things. I do apologize. That might be an A. Maybe this was a B. Maybe a C. Whichever way I'm counting this, a D, and we could potentially be seeing an E. We might be in the latter stages of this triangle. So if we're going to start seeing a strong sell-off here, then be careful. We could potentially see price break these lows here and maybe even make it towards today's projected range low, which is at what, 1948, and we also have S1 at 1944. If price does reach these, it will be breaking these lows that were set at the end of May. So again, this does look to me like a triangle that's underway, and it might potentially be very close to the end of it. But if we do see a break to the upside, I'm still going to call it a triangle, but just a more complex A, B triangle with a C to the upside. Right, so being pretty spot on with the direction of gold. It's not just a question of which direction price is going to break out. Okay. Lastly, crude oil. Also been a very strong downtrend into the beginning of May, moved upwards. We were sort of thinking this was a correction, or I was at least during these sessions, albeit a very sort of a complex one. And then we had this strong decline to the downside, failed to take out this candle with this very long week here, moved all the way back. I think it was last week, Monday, when the Saudis announced that they're going to start cutting production. We had an open when Sunday's trading commenced in the US, above these previous highs, and immediate sell-off down to the downside again. Obviously fooling everyone again, thinking that it's very bullish, and it wasn't, and we start seeing a strong decline. My main thing here is still, was this just an A, B, C? Now, I was thinking at this stage it's going to break this low. That was just a very strange looking ABC. Price found support. It did this again, and I was expecting then a double zigzag, which is my next pattern to go to after a single zigzag. That didn't happen. Price started moving lower again. So, yeah, in two minds of what's going on here. Obviously, a very large range that price is in. Maybe it could be doing something similar than Russell did for quite some time. Just a sideways mess. So I'm still thinking this might continue in crude oil. I think, when was it? A few days ago, we had very strong sell-offs here. And then again, a V-shaped sort of bottom, followed by a very strong reversal back up again. So still there trying to figure out, what my best sort of explanation is of what's going on here from a pattern analysis perspective. But I'm a bit on the sidelines of crude oil. But again, if you're trading intraday, maybe it's a good thing just to look at these levels to lock in our price, reacts in relation to them. So I see price just pulled back to today's pivot point, which is at 68.75. Previously, it was at R1, couldn't get through there at 70.36. So I think if we see a break above today's range high at 70.49, let me just make sure that is today's range high. Oops. Yeah, 70.49. That could potentially be bullish, and we could see another move back up towards R2 at 71.43, maybe even today's projected range high at 71.72. Alternatively, should price continue lower and on 4-hour close to below today's pivot point, we could see a quick flush towards today's projected range low at 67.82. S1 is at 67.68. I think if it does pull back this low, it might just take out these previous lows. It was set a little bit earlier this week. Right, so again, a bit on the sideline with crude oil, very messy price action, very volatile, but it is what it is, right? Things can always be very clear. So we'll recap all these things again tomorrow, obviously, during tomorrow's last session, see where the markets are, how they reacted to the federal funds rate release, and yeah, take things from there. And that concludes the analysis side of things, guys. A lot of talking. If you're new to this and some of this confuses you, don't worry. Please just attend again. I think the more you see this, the easier it gets. Some might call what I do too complicated, but believe me, it's something that really served me well during the years. And it's just very amazing to see how price tends to gravitate towards, as well as find support and resistance at these market geometry levels, as well as our levels to lock. So yeah, that's it from me. Any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and then Nathan will relay them to me. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Richard. And, following up on what you just shared, I can certainly attest to your methodology and the effectiveness of your methodology, having had the distinct pleasure of going on almost 6 years here, Richard, of watching you do this live, your newsletters, and one way or another, having a constant exposure to you, to your insights has been incredibly invaluable over the years. So again, just backing up what you said, Richard, absolutely, this stuff is incredibly powerful, and it's great to be informed and to have these insights, to be armed with these as you go into the markets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, as Richard said, we definitely want to make room for any more questions you might have about today's analysis, the levels we covered. If you're new to these sessions, if you have any questions about what's next, about some of our future sessions, as mentioned, we are back tomorrow at noon to recap. We'll give you our final update before we head into the weekend. And then, of course, as mentioned, we're going to have a tool spotlight on deck next week. And if you have any feedback relating to that or requests for any tools you'd like to see us break out and use live in these sessions, please feel free to fire away. Let us know.
With that being said, Nathan, sorry for butting in there.
Sure.
Was it for a reason that asked us to look at the dynamic support and resistance, which I was supposed to do on Monday? And then, unfortunately, there was a bit of a family emergency I had to attend to. That's why we didn't have Monday's session. So I was planning on doing it past Monday, so we could definitely redo that or not redo it, do it for the first time next week, Monday.
Sure.
So I do apologize for that. I didn't forget about you.
Sure, and that was for a reason who joins us over on the YouTube simulcast. I don't know if you're with us today for a reason. If you are, maybe give us a quick wave. But as Richard just stated, we're going to circle back to the SR Dynamic tool on Monday this coming week.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, Richard, I was actually traveling earlier this week as well. So this is my first session of the week because I was out on Monday. But we are fully back in action and back on our rotation here. So it doesn't look like we have any questions coming through in the chat just yet. So before we head out the door, there's a couple things I'm going to throw into the mix here. One of which, if you're new to these sessions, we do a little something. We do our terrible joke, our terrible pun, or known more colloquially as the dad joke of the day. So we do have a dad joke on deck for you here. But also, I just want to make you aware, we do have a live event later this afternoon after market close. I know some of our members here are Robot Lab users. If you are not a Robot Lab user, or if you have not had the chance to attend one of our automated day trading masterclasses, we will be live after market close today at 4:15 Eastern time. So definitely check that out if you're something you're interested in. You can see the link there in the chat. We'll take you directly to the sign up page. You'll get your link right away. It looks like we also did have another question come through from Sec. Looks like, can you publish to emails a schedule of the menu of the week? That is actually a great idea. We do have some things we're working on in addition to our Levels to Lock newsletter, ways for us to stay in touch outside of these live sessions. We'd love for you to come into these sessions with the ability to be equipped with those levels beforehand. So part of our intention is to get those levels out to you in a newsletter bright and early in the morning, and we're all on the same page when we shuffle into these live sessions. But to your point, Sec, I think it's a great idea to include a sort of menu of the week, as you mentioned. The tool spotlight. If we're going to be having a special guest, we're known to have special guests here very often. We will have some coming again soon. So that is a great idea. And this is an example of some great feedback coming through here in the live room, and us receiving that and wanting to put that to work. So that's definitely something that we will look into, whether it's just a simple email within the Zoom reminders each week. There's definitely something we can do for that.
Yeah, let's hit up with the powers that be and ask them if they can send something out for us. I'm sure they will.
Sure,
We can definitely
absolutely. Yeah, I think something at the beginning of each week would be great too, just to align all of our expectations and such. Sec, I'm not sure if you can attach a picture here in Zoom. If there's a chart, or is it a chart you're trying to share with us? If it's a chart or something like that, if you could share, maybe if you could upload it to a Google Photos folder, or perhaps Dropbox, something like that, that lets you quickly upload and share images via links. Yeah, it looks like Sec does have a chart for us. And we're always happy to take a look at your charts. Unfortunately, Zoom does limit what we're able to share in that chat, but if you are able to share it via a link somehow, we'll be happy to take a look for you.
Yeah. Maybe drop it to support and then ask them to forward it to my email.
Sure.
I also can have a look at that for you if you want, Sec, tomorrow during morning my time.
Sure. Yeah. If you're not able to, if you don't have something handy where you're able to kind of share that via link, no problem. If you're not able to do so today in this session, you can feel free to follow up with us via support. There's a contact form on the website. Alternatively, just support@ninjacators.com. So yeah, if you perfect. Okay. Yeah. If you want to shoot it over to support@ninjacators.com, let them know that it's for Richard from Profits at Noon, and they'll make sure that gets over to us. And we can even pull it up in tomorrow's session if you plan to be back with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to look at that for you.
Awesome. Well, as mentioned, we do have that event after market close today. So if you have any interest in our Robot Lab software, automated day trading, be sure to attend that session. The link is there in the chat to get you registered. On the way out the door here, if we don't have any further questions, it is, of course, that dreaded time of day, I suppose you could say, for the dad joke of the day.
Yep. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Hits us up.
Now, Richard, you may remember this one. I feel like I dropped this one on you a while back, so no cheating if you do remember. We'll share these here in the chat. This is just something fun we like to do on our way out the door. So coming your way in the chat, here is our dad joke of the day. What do you call a theatrical performance about puns?
No, you didn't share this with me previously. I can't remember. I can't wait either.
What do we call a theatrical performance on puns? I was trying to cue some Jeopardy music for you there, Richard, but it ended up being an advertisement instead.
You should play your guitar.
Well, looks like our Jeopardy music is not going to come through for today. So it's just another ad. Unbelievable. So, what do we call a theatrical performance about puns? Ladies and gentlemen, that is a play on words.
Oh, no, man.
Yes, a theatrical performance about puns is a play on words. You heard it here first, for better or worse. That is our pun, our terrible dad joke of the day.
Today, right?
Squeaky clean, as always.
Squeaky clean, yeah.
Well,
awesome stuff.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I know we had some new faces here. Looks like we have one more question coming through real quick. I'm sorry, Sec, I'm not sure what the webinar address. Could you rephrase? I'm just not sure what you mean by that, but we'll be happy to take care of that for you on the way out here.
Is this the Robot Lab one?
Don't see the... you're looking for that link? No problem. Yep, I will drop that one more time here before we go. So coming your way, everybody.
The Robot Lab.
In the chat, there's the link for today's Robot Lab event after market close. The founder, the architect of our Robot Lab, Christian, will be on deck to give you that presentation, answer any questions you may have, and show you the portfolios they've built and the performance that they've seen all year. Looks like the link is not showing. How about now?
Opening for me. I just clicked
there
on
it
it and that
goes.
fills up.
There we go. So Richard's got it pulled up there on his screen. That's the link. Sorry about that, guys and gals. Not sure. It must have been a chat setting. Sometimes it'll automatically change if the panelists like Richard and I are chatting together. It must have changed me away from chatting with everyone to just Richard. So that's why you were seeing it, Richard.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that heads up. Thank you so much for letting us know on the way out the door. I'll give everyone just one more second to grab onto that link to check that out. But as you can see, Richard had it pulled up there. It's the registration page for today's event. Again, getting started at 4:15 Eastern time. So definitely encourage you to check that out if you have not before. And then as mentioned, of course, we are back again tomorrow to close out the week for the final Profits at Noon session. We will be live tomorrow, Thursday at noon Eastern time. Sec, if you get that chart over to us, Richard will have that on deck in the morning. And then, of course, we will give you all the updates as we head into the weekend. If we don't have any other questions here today, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So again, thank everybody that was here, the new faces and the old faces alike. It was great to have everyone join us here. Thank you, Richard, as always, for sharing your brain.
You're welcome.
Those invaluable insights. It's always a pleasure. And as mentioned, it has been a great opportunity, these last 5 or 6 years now coming up that I've been working alongside you. So thank you so much, everyone. We hope to see you again tomorrow at noon Eastern time, and we'll send you into the weekend. But in the meantime, everyone have a great rest of your day, and feel free to reach out if anything comes up before we're live again. We'll be happy to take care of it. Awesome. Thanks, Hal. Have a great rest of your day as well.
Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Perfect. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.